Call to order the March 17th, 2026 Communications Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Carrie Weggie is absent. Craig Pennington. Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Lois Truman.
Here.
Rod White.
Here.
Alderman Gould, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So the next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does everybody had a chance to take a look at the agenda and have any issues with approving it by acclamation? Okay, so it'll stand approved. Next item is the citizen comments. Anybody in the audience or online have anything to say about related to Communications Committee and communications in general? You'll be given up to 3 minutes.
No, we only have our presenters.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on it is a report of the committee chair and members. I just would like to have a heartfelt thank you to all of the people who had submitted proposals. I think it was incredible to see some of the variety of the responses, and I have no doubt that within those submissions we will find the right partner to partner with. I thank the folks that are here tonight to present to us. I want to level set and remind the committee that there is no expectation tonight that we have a full recommendation to go to the Board of Aldermen for review. Tonight is about listening to the presentations, about having opportunity to ask questions of both staff and presenters tonight. And then I would guess that we'll take some time to process some of that and then provide some more direction possibly at the next meeting. So I just wanted to kind of level set that that's what we're here for tonight. Alderman Plufka.
I have no report.
Lois, any report?
I don't have a report, but I also want to thank you for sending the refocused for what we're doing tonight that's very helpful.
You're welcome, thank you.
And I also thank all of the people that plowed through the 22. That's awesome.
Yeah. Craig Pennington, no report? Okay. Rod Wright?
No report.
All right, thank you very much. Next is the city administrator report. Doesn't look like we have one on there. And usually, so we'll move on to the next. Usually we have a department report. We're not doing a department report tonight.
Got a busy agenda.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we'll move on. The next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review? It's only one item, the minutes. If I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And the ayes have it. We'll move to old business. So RFQ responses and for logo branding initiative. Michelle, do you want to set things up?
Sure. So as you know, we narrowed the field down from 22 to 6 firms. Those 6 firms either came in person or we met with via Zoom Teams with the selection committee or review committee, if you will, and we spoke with each of those 6 firms to kind of narrow the field even further down to 3. Those 3 finalist firms are available this evening to give a short 10-ish minute presentation and then answer some questions, anything that maybe you're still a little uncertain about, offer clarification to the committee members to help kind of hone and, clear up any uncertainties. The first firm that we've got, we actually have here in person, we have Elizabeth Arway. She is here from Creative Entourage. Okay. So Elizabeth, feel free.
Before we call Elizabeth up, how would you like to proceed with the committee asking questions? Are we doing that in between each presentation?
Yes, let's go through each firm fully at once. So Elizabeth will give her presentation, and then you can ask questions of Elizabeth in Creative Entourage. Once she is finished, she is welcome to stay, or she can go ahead and be on her way, and then we'll move on to Chandler Thanks is number 2. They're online, and then we'll go through the whole process for Chandler Thanks, and then we'll move on to Destination by Design.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions for staff before we get into it?
I think that's everything.
Wonderful.
Hopefully the person here is able to run the technology correctly.
Yes,
Okay, great. Well, before I go into that, they did task us to do a 10-minute presentation. So I didn't put this in the presentation, but I'm Elizabeth Arway. I'm the owner of Creative Entourage. I'm so sorry. I am not a presentation person. Hang out with you
yeah,
at a
that's
table
fine.
and have a
The only reason I
conversation.
might correct you to get
So
closer so that the microphone
microphones
picks it
were
up,
on.
correct?
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's hard for me. So I'm Elizabeth Arway, the owner of Creative Entourage. I am very excited to be here to be a part of this narrowing process. I feel honored to hear that we're one of the 3 that were selected to be here tonight. So thank you for that. A little bit about me. I actually grew up in a rural part of Illinois, south of Chicago, and I went to Maryville University in St. Louis, and that's where I got my degree in graphic design. I then made roots here, bounced around in different areas, but we now have a farm actually down in Robertsville, Missouri, where we have our bees and chickens and all that good stuff. So been a part of the St. Louis community for a very long time, and obviously know the Brentwood community quite well from my time here. So I'm gonna take this time to walk you through a slide deck that is just a really high level, and I focus on the process more than anything. Our proposal is very robust, and it has very great detail about all the work we've done. I'm going to show some of that, but I really do want to hit on the process. So a little bit about my company. Founded 18 years ago, specializing in graphic design, communications, marketing, and engagement. We are an award-winning design firm, and we're very proud of that. As you know, located here in St. Louis, but I have team members across the country, Virginia and down in Tuscaloosa are where 2 of my team members are at. We work with B2B, B2C, and public sector. So having that background of all of those different areas really does help kind of foster a lot of creativity across all platforms for our clients. And we actually worked, Lois's face was really familiar because we worked with her on the Brentwood Brown project several years ago. I personally did the creative and the promotion of that, communications of that. So 5 reasons why you should pick Creative Entourage for your project. So number 1, we specialize in municipal branding. We have worked with several public sector clients. We know how to balance between the creative vision and the practical implementation. So we'll have great ideas, but we have to make sure that the city can actually put those to use. And our proven process is adaptable for our public sector clients. So every city structure is different. For example, you have a communications committee. That is not as typical in other cities. And so we can adapt to apply that to our current structure and make this an even more successful process, having your voice be weaved a part of it. So other municipal branding clients that we've had, the City of Eureka, Maplewood, Neosho, Webster Groves, and Wentzville. Other public sector clients that you may have heard of, the Central West End North Improvement District, Great Rivers Greenway, Maplewood Small Business District, the St. Louis Zoo, which we're very proud to be working with them for about 5 years doing their annual report, and a special project for the Wild Care Institute. And then Will County Center for Economic Development, they're actually up in Will County, Illinois. So we have clients across the river. So the City of Maplewood, we're currently in the design process for them. Unfortunately, I can't show you what that looks like quite yet, but we are working on a tagline, the city branding, department logos, the police, fire, parks and rec, templates and standards that all follow the ADA recommendation and guidelines. But here are some brands that you probably hopefully have seen. The City of Eureka. So back in about 2000-ish, 2000, we designed the City of Eureka's logo. That was an initiative that was really small and led by staff of the city. This did win the 2021 3CMA Savvy Award, first place in the country for city rebranding. So we're very, very proud of that. Next here is the city of New Osho. Are you guys familiar with that city? It's down in the Ozarks. Lovely community. We worked with them earlier this year to rebrand them and put their brand standards and style guides together. So very sharp. The city really embraced this, the mark. And I'm gonna get in more details of the background of this later out in the slide deck. With Webster Grows, we actually did not do the logo itself. Webster Grows for a long time had that logo, but had no brand standards at all. They just had the JPEG files. So they hired us to come in to really refine their brand and give them those templates and those guidelines. Because for the city, they need those pieces because so many departments are utilizing those standards. And then we worked with the city of Wentzville. That was also kind of a comprehensive project where my business partner, Jennifer Volk, she ran the communications audit and worked on that. But in addition to that, they knew that they needed brand standards developed. They did not need the city logo redone, but it was actually designed by someone with the staff without a design kind of know-how. So I actually refined the logo and cleaned it up to make it more accurate to the level of the city they are. And then the Parks and Recs department's mark was completely disjointed from the city. So we actually went in and we redesigned the Parks department branding and then built them out a full brand kit. This also won a Savvy Award in 2021. We also do other stuff, like I mentioned, the Central West End Improvement District, we did their branding. The city of Maplewood, we worked with their small business district and did their Makers, which was a special program highlighting the Makers district of that community. On the bottom left, you see the Timbers, which that's the Park and Recs, the facility in Eureka. So we refreshed that mark. O'Fallon Fire District, we did their mark, in Illinois Firefighters Association. So those are more of our kind of much more public sector. But these are some other brands that are B2B or B2C that you may have seen in the community that we have been a part of as well. So hopefully you've been to the Cup or the Cakery to get a sweet treat here and there throughout the years. So number 2, our process is grounded in community input. So as you guys know, doing anything by committee can be really hard, but especially designing by committee can be very, very hard. So that's why having a process is extremely important. So we have done this process with our other clients and we know it's a proven process that works. So I'll get into that 5-phase process, but we really want everything that we're doing at the very beginning to be grounded by the community input. So what does that process look like? So phase 1 is discovery and community input. So we are going to be researching, looking at what other cities are doing, their branding, but we're gonna be listening, most importantly. We're gonna be listening to the key stakeholders. We're gonna be listening to your community. And by all of that research and gathering, we'll put together a creative brief that's gonna outline where we're gonna go creatively. It is our Bible, it's our foundation, so that when we get farther down the road, we can go back to it and say, well, this is why we did this, because this is what we learned in our discovery phase. So once we complete that, we go to phase 2, where we start creating. We develop the concepts and the logo, the taglines, and once we get the primary city logo set, we then work on the sub-brands, which you guys have a few sub-brands that have to be reviewed. Then we create your brand standards, templates, and then we go to rollout. So it's really heavy on that front end, and then we kind of slide into the rest of it. So what does that community input look like? So typically, we do stakeholder input sessions. So that will be, obviously, you will be at the table giving us your input. But we want to hear from different components of the community, including residents that are new here to residents that have been here forever, different demographic and age groups. So we'll work through that and define who those people need to be. Then we can do community workshops where we bring people in. The one that we just did with the city of Maplewood was super fun. We had a lot of kids show up and draw, like, what do you see the logo looking like? And there were some great ideas that came out from that that helped kind of give some vision and direction of where we were gonna go. And then data-driven insight through a community questionnaire. So we're not calling this a survey because we are not formally survey experts. But what we do put together is a questionnaire that helps guide us through the visuals and direction of where we need to go. So number 3, we turn community feedback into a strategic brand. So that goes back to that creative brief, and I'm gonna dive deeper into that. So This is kind of a little preview of what we did for the city of Maplewood recently. Unfortunately, I can't leave that with you today. But we define what we learned through that discovery process. And then we really kind of start digging in deeper is what is the creative direction, just the kind of the feel, keywords that are coming out of our research that we're gonna apply to design. And then in that creative brief, we write out what our logo direction is going to be for each concept. So we're very clear and concise. Why are we doing these concepts the way we're doing it? It's because of everything we learned over here. And so then our team, our creative team, takes what we have here and we put it to life. So for example of how we've done that, see on the top left, Maplewood is in those Post-it notes. That was during our community engagement, and those key words that were written there helped inspire our tagline that was approved by the city. So those words for the city tagline are actually developed by the community members themselves. Then you'll see the City of Neosho. So they needed a new city seal. That was something that was a huge, important piece of their rebranding process. But they had a ton of history. It was amazing. If you've never been to Neosho, I would highly recommend you going to visit. So what we did is we listed all of these amazing historical things on that questionnaire. And when the community filled that out, we then knew what were the top 3 to 4 things that we need to have represented in the seal. So much easier to have that community led versus us sitting there in a group of 5 or 6 trying to decide what that should be. Oh, and then one little, I'll talk about that later. Hold out for another great thing that came out of that project. So number 4, we designed brands that last. So this is really important. You're investing a lot of money, of community money into this project. So you want this brand to be timeless. So what does that look like? Well, we create brands that don't look super dated. You know, we're very mindful of the typography and the styling of that brand. But we also make the brand very functional. So again, there's a lot of departments here that are using that brand. And so we create brand guides for each specific genre of department. So here is an example of the City of Neosho. We have the city brand quick guide, we have the fire quick guide, and the police quick guide. So if you have new hires or new people that are coming in, it's a really quick way for them to see, okay, these are our brand colors, these are our logos, these are our fonts. So they're really easily to be onboarded, and they can apply these into tools like Canva or other things like that that make their lives a lot easier. We also just have started introducing AI prompts into our brand standards. So this is a way for us to give them an immediate guide. So let's say, Michelle, you're out and there's no one here to get your job done. They can go to that AI prompt, plug that in, and so now you don't need a graphic designer to do something like a big alert or something like that. So it's a great tool that we're implementing. So number 5, we believe that the city's brand should tell its story. So with the city, there's so much to say. With any brand, I know you all are sitting here representing different businesses or such, and so you can't say everything with one icon or mark, but what you can do is tell the best story you can in the entire package. So here's where I was gonna go with that. So Neo shows the City of Springs. So obviously we have the illustration of a beautiful springs for the City of Neosho. Again, I told you the story about their seal and the different components of that history are represented in that seal. But there on the bottom left, you see this little square that's introduced in the logo mark. That was actually inspired by the old City Hall. So when you walked in the square of Neosho and you looked up at the old City Hall, there was beautiful wire designs or metal designs around the windows, and this was the center point of that. And so now we're storytelling through a mark with some really beautiful ways of bringing history and interest into the design. So that completes my presentation. So we would love to be a part of telling your story of Brentwood. Any questions?
Thank you. I'll open it up to the committee members. Go ahead, David Plefka.
Of the 5 stages of design that you identified and described, which do you find the most challenging in a public sector type situation? 5 phases.
Honestly, like this process has been really refined and proven to work really, really well because it's not taking one individual person's opinion and applying it. It's us listening and collecting all that data and that information to make it community-driven. I think where we've had the most challenge, it wasn't about the process that was the challenge, but we've struggled, or we personally haven't struggled, but just we know that there's internal struggle when it comes to fire and police particularly, because those brands hold another level of emotional component to those staff members. And so we are very mindful when we hit that phase of the project of listening very closely to those desires of those departments. And then we work collaboratively with the city to make sure that we are listening to what their needs are and what the fire needs are and the police needs are. So that is where we make sure that we are the most flexible and listening the most so that we're making the best decisions at that time.
Thank you.
I didn't see in your,
Is your, turn your microphone on.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
do you also do banners or those kind of things? Because I'm a big freak about these banners. That
Are
we're
you
gonna
talking about the pole banners?
put- Yes, the pole banners.
Yeah,
on the
so we've
street.
done we've done those designs for other clients. And within this, we can provide a mock-up of like what the city basic branding would look like on a pole flag. Yes.
Okay.
They probably wouldn't be producing those banners for us, but they would help us with the kind of design
Design.
aspects, maybe the specs and stuff like that.
Right, that's just what I was thinking about, the varied types of, I don't know if
I
the
think what
word's
you-
media or whatever, all those.
What you're getting into is in this process, in addition to
producible.
logo and standards, brand standards with outlining fonts and everything, is part of your process developing, you know, what I've called ad-like objects or, you know,
Mock-ups.
mock-ups that
Yeah,
might
yeah, we call those
represent what a
mock-ups.
new brand would look like.
Yeah, so in the discovery process, we work with the city to define what all do you need to get out of us at the end, because we all have assumptions, like we know when we put the bid together, we have assumptions on what your needs are, but there could be, well, we need to see on this coffee mug, on this mouse pad, on this pole banner, on this street sign. So we're very flexible on understanding what the unique things are in this community that we need to mock up to give that baseline of here's where the brand should go. But that's mock-ups. So
Yeah, and
when you
that-
go to
and I'm-
signage, that's a whole different
Yeah,
thing.
and that's understandable, like getting in specific tactics, but I'm talking more like key visuals that are maybe something that, here's at how the hierarchy of the design might work in less content with maybe an item that has more content in it,
Yeah.
you know, not specific to a mouse pad or whatever. you know,
Yeah,
just-
so we put rules, they are rules, they're guidelines in your brand guidelines that say how the logo should be placed and used. For example, the city of Neosho, it's in more of the proposal, not in here, they have a simplified version of this mark without the illustration, because this illustration you can't embroider.
Yeah,
So they have a secondary mark that's embroider friendly.
gotcha, yeah. Great. Any other questions before I have a few, but I want the committee to.
Yeah, just a quick one. Since you've actually worked with the city before, is there any recommendation that you have how we can work with you better?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's collecting as much information on the front end as possible, because once we get that creative brief signed off on, we can't go back. Like that's our foundation of the rest of the project. So it's just making sure that we are getting all of the information pulled from you early on. That's the most important. Second most important thing is just educating your community about what is happening. Why is this transition happening? You know, we know why we're here as a committee and as a city of the importance of this rebrand, but your neighbors may not understand it. So they may see this as, oh, they're just wasting money on something, when there's true value and importance of why this has to get done. So that would be for everybody and the city administration and the staff encouraging those talking points.
Nice presentation, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee, or? I've got a few of them that I'd like, that are specific to your proposal. And one of them has to do with, I'll just piggyback on since you have worked with Brentwood in the past, or even some of our neighboring municipalities. Explain how that maybe is an enhancement or an advantage to, if we were to use you, rather than feeling like there's already a determined direction that you think we want to see. So how does that?
I don't know if I'm going to answer this the right way, so if I'm not, just let me know, like, oh, that's not what I was looking for. But this question was kind of asked to me in the first round, too. I'm walking into this project with no vision.
Okay.
And I'm sure you're like, what the heck? Like, she should know what she's doing. Because it's community-led. I haven't talked to your community yet. So it is a white piece of paper.
Okay.
It is blank. Because this is all going to be created organically through what the community is saying. So if I was in Illinois or California, it's all a blank slate, because every community needs to tell their own story, and that story is going to come out through that discovery process.
Right.
Does that answer your
Yeah, it does.
question?
It does.
Okay.
As far as staffing goes, I noticed in the proposal, some of the staff members are listed as subcontractors, and I'm curious how we control accountability, or if one of those contractors is not available, how do you manage, if we were to engage in a process, how do we manage consistency and accountability for that, if subcontractors might have to change?
Yeah, so I'm your point person on this entire project. So I'm your main point of contact. So every once in a while, you will see me copying, or other people are including on, and just as we're going through the process, just so that I'm not having to forward an email or do something on it. I'm your point of contact. We haven't had any problems in the past, and you can call my references and ask them about that question. I have an amazing team that's been with me for a while, and I'm very blessed by the talents that they support, so thank you.
Right, yeah. And part of the proposal, although it was, not overly larger part of the RFQ, was an evaluation of the City of Warmth tagline, and I don't think that I saw in the proposal, how do you evaluate whether that's something that still serves the city, and what would your recommendation process look like if you were to propose, and is that within the scope of what you've?
It is in the scope of the project. So what we would do is we would ask those questions in those input sessions to the stakeholder group. And from there, we would get a sense of like the temperature of that, and where those groups of people are sharing their opinion on it. And then we'll put that into the questionnaire. And then we'll find through that if there is a need and desire to move away from that. And then from other questions in that questionnaire, that will help inspire us of where we need to go with the tagline. So yes, it is included.
Okay, thank you. I think I have two more. One relates to, I thought it was interesting that you include, so your proposal included 3 concepts to logos in the breakdown. And then I thought it was interesting that you include those concept write-ups in the brief. What's been your experience with the creative process and the production and the execution, if it requires that you adapt from or deviate from what you've written in the brief?
That just happened, actually. So with the city of Maplewood particularly, we were working on concepts that were really driven by what our creative brief was saying. But through creative process, there was a 4th logo that came out of it, just from us rendering and seeing how things were gonna turn out, that still did align with the goals and objectives, but it wasn't articulately spelled out. We still presented it because it fell within line of the creative objectives. And we were very clear when we presented that 4th concept of how we got there and why we were presenting it. And so that there's sense of creative freedom when you still are in those guidelines of what the community is requesting, even if we didn't discover that when we were writing the document. But we would have never pitched an idea that was not within that framework, because that is self-serving to us and not serving the community.
Okay, great. Last question that I have was mostly how the structure was on your proposal for the fee. It didn't appear to me to be broken down by phases, and it was just a flat fee for the project. Can you explain, if there were some adjustments that we needed to make based on scope? How do we know how that impacts the potential fee?
Yeah, we're very fluid in what we provide you. And so even in our first interview meeting, it was asked like, hey, if we needed a fourth input session for a fourth, I'm like, yes, we are flexible to do that. We built that scope so that we can put more effort into something over here if it needs to be there. Like if we needed to do one more other open house, we can put energy towards that. It's really hard for we're on this side of the table on our computer, we're seeing this RFP, and we have to give you the best scope based on our experience and time of other projects that we know that's gonna be in the investment. Once we start nickel and diming those sections, then I think we spend the rest of the project nickel and dime, like, okay, you have to stop here. We can't have another meeting about this. By us providing that giant scope of project, it leaves us fluid and flexible. So we know where we can tighten up things over here and make them more efficient, and give you guys more space over on this side. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I can appreciate that. And I understand how difficult it is at the beginning of an RFQ, which you have no idea what you're going to produce. You're pricing it out. It was just wanted to make sure that we understood, how those breakdowns of the phases might work, and just in case things need to be adjusted, and how that might impact the
Yeah,
change in cost.
And the other part of that, in our discovery phase, we work with the city to list out all of the templates that need to be created. And again, that's happening at that front end. So we may know like, okay, they're asking for 30 more pieces than that we've ever been requested for. So we're gonna have to really be on them on their rounds of edits, where we're usually a little really soft. Like if we're on round 5, we're on round 5. Like we're gonna get where we need to be because we wanna make you happy. But if we know that down on phase 4, like we're gonna be having to turn a lot of stuff, we know a lot of our budget is over there. So a lot is discovered in that phase 1 from community, but also internally, what the needs are.
Any other questions that have come up from the committee? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Really appreciate you taking the time on St. Patrick's Day to be here with us, Elizabeth. So now we will move on to Chandler Thanks.
Okay.
And we have Kevin Hinson is online. Kevin, can you hear us?
We can see you, we can't hear you yet.
Say something.
Can you try saying something, Kevin? Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
We had this happen last night too, didn't we? Well, with public comments, couldn't hear.
We still cannot hear you. It looks like even the green around your box isn't showing up, so there might be some connection issue with your microphone, or you can go into sound settings and double check that your microphone is actually connected and if the input sensitivity is actually picking anything up.
Other Zoom participant can hear them.
Oh, okay, well, that's on our side then. So the panelists or the participants can hear through Zoom, but we can't hear on our side, so.
Well, we could sign on.
Can you guys try logging out and logging back into the meeting? Thank you.
But there's got to be a setting on our side that's why the citizen comments couldn't be heard last night. I see the green box. Can you guys talk? Nope. Still can't hear. So are we connected to the speakers? It wasn't working last night either, so. Very sorry, guys. Yeah, it will cause an echo for sure. No, second item. I mean, I don't know that they can hear everything. The third presenter can hear, but they can't. I think the problem's on our end.
Oh, wait a minute.
No,
That's an echo because she turned off her.
Yes, we test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. It seems to be recognizing us. It's just not coming.
We can hear you. It's just not coming through the main system, so it's going to echo if we talk, although.
Let's do the presentation, and then we'll figure it out from there.
That sounds good.
All of you. Okay, Kevin.
All right, can you hear us? And this is Greg. We're just using my computer, so it's safe. Yeah. Presentation to just kind of go through the process, tell you a little bit about our team and who we are and just kind of what this project looks like, and then open everything up for questions. Do we need to share controls to where we can? I can share, I think.
I believe you should have the ability to share.
Do you see a presentation that says community branding?
Yes, sir.
yes.
All right, great. Well, again, thank you for the time and allowing us to talk about our company. Community branding is something we love and are passionate about. To tell you a little bit about Chandler Thinks, we are a place marketing, place branding firm. We do some destination research, and most of our business is in brand development and planning. And we also do strategic planning as well. And when you look at that, part of that comes from a tourism side. It also comes from the municipality side as well. Well, one of the interesting things is about us, all of our clients represent communities. We only work in the space of municipality, tourism destinations, and economic development. We don't do any consumer goods or any business to business. It is all working with those people in communities, with municipalities, tourism, and economic development. And just to give you a little breath of who we are and how long we've been around for 15 plus years. We've worked in 128 states and over 116, or 28 states, 116 communities. And that includes some that have downtowns that specifically, but villages, towns, cities, counties. We've done a number of regions in some states where it's been a collaboration and some specific trails. The most important piece of Chandler Thinks, besides the great branding work we do, we only have one team. And I'll introduce that team to you. We classify it as the A team, and our A team has unmatched experience in place branding. We've all been in this business for a long time, and I'll introduce who that team is. First is Kevin, whose computer that we've been talking with. But Kevin Henson, he's our creative director and brand identity person, and also works in brand strategy. Kevin's been doing place branding for over 25 years. He's worked specifically with over 150 places in 36 states, and he's probably developed more graphic identities for municipalities and tourism destinations than anybody else. He's done over 100 of those throughout his career. So he's well versed in what brand identity is for municipalities. The next person is Cindy Sargent. Cindy would love to be on this call tonight, but she just got back from traveling overseas, and we have quarantined her because she has become ill. So she would love to be here, but one of the things Cindy is, she's our creative director for Brand Voice. So what she does is she brings all of it. Kevin brings it to life, and Cindy puts the words behind it to give it that voice. But she has over 25 years of place branding experience, worked with 50 plus projects in 14 states, and she's developed these positions for over 40 places. One of the interesting things about Cindy
is she was actually a part of the team who did the branding for Music City, for Nashville. And so that's a big piece of what she does. She's also worked with the beaches of South Walton. So has Kevin, done a number of those types of places. And then Steve Chandler, who is our chief brand strategist, and he's the owner of the company. He's had 20 years of place branding experience. He's also worked with over 150 places in 30 states. And Steve is also an expert, known as an expert in the place branding space. He's often asked to speak at state conferences and other conferences to speak on the topic of place branding. And then I'll introduce myself. I'm the Director of Research and Community Engagement. I've been in the business for doing place branding for over 25 years, worked with 160 plus places in 32 states and some in Canada. The big piece of what we do is research, and I've probably moderated over at least 400 community focus groups and 1,500 plus one-on-ones. That's what I do. And so I think that it's really important to understand our team has unmatched experience compared to other companies, because we look at it as the people who are doing the presentations and the people who are in front of you, we're the ones doing the work. We don't have where we would present and send someone else out because they just don't have the experience that we have to be able to go through what it takes to develop a successful municipal brand.
So now I get to talk, as the creative, I get to talk about the secret sauce for municipal branding. And regardless if you hire us, we hope you do, I'm going to tell you what that secret sauce is right now today, so you can go forth and whoever you hire, you can tell them what the secret sauce is. It's incredible creative and a logo and ads. That is what makes a successful municipal brand. We don't think so. What we think makes a successful municipal brand is stakeholder engagement. Because if the community doesn't get behind what you do, it doesn't matter how good your logo is, it doesn't matter how good your messaging or your social media posts are, or any ads or posters you do, it doesn't matter what they are if the community is not involved and is not engaged with the process. And the reason that's so important is branding community is a lot more difficult than branding a product or service. Early in my career, I've worked at an ad agency. I have worked on ad campaigns for widgets and bowling balls and golf balls and things. As Greg said earlier, we don't do that because we specialize in this space. And as I said, it's much more difficult. And why is it difficult? Unlike traditional business branding, a community is both an organization. You have the city, you have your different departments, Parks and Rec, et cetera, but it's also a place. It's not just the organization of the city, but it's also the place of the city. And this creates unique branding challenges. Number one of those is first rule in branding is own your product. Guess what? We do not own our product. We can control the city itself is everything within the city. So we don't really, we don't own the name. Sorry, I skipped ahead. So
We don't own the name.
we don't own the name. We don't own the city of Brentwood's name. You can have a business named it. You can have the Brentwood Tire and Lube. You can have the Brentwood Massage Parlor. So that's the first thing you want to know. Next is we don't own our product. Sorry, I got that out of order. To that effect, we not only don't own our name, we don't own our product, because the product is everything in that city. It's the things the city does, what the Parks and Rec does, how good your park does, but it's also a business. Maybe that business has a junky storefront. It doesn't break codes, but it doesn't look good. And that's part of your product. We don't control that. There's no hierarchy of direction. The city mayor, alderman, they can control certain aspects within the organization, but they don't necessarily control things at the place. They can't go to a homeowner down the street and go, I don't like the color you painted your house. They just can't do that. So
one of the things, after you look at what those hierarchies and one of the things that happens with place branding, we've developed our definition of what place branding is, and it is the purposeful orchestration of a place to positively affect, and these two words are important, its image and its reputation through the creation of a compelling story that exploits shared experiences. And the following are in order. It's for your residents first, businesses, and then visitors alike. One of the unique things about place branding or municipal branding is you're two places. You are the government entity, and you're also a place where people live and things that are delivered in that. And so that purposeful orchestration to say, what is our image? What's our reputation? It makes it it's imperative that that's exploited in the brand through those experiences. And we have, based on the communities that we've worked all over the place, the communities, we've developed a place branding wheel. And what this does is there's 8 pillars in there, from key businesses in your community, any tourism assets you have, arts and entertainment, heritage, some education. You may have schools that are represented. We know some communities that are only identified by schools. What's your civic leadership? How is it viewed? The people, how are they viewed? And any natural assets you might have. All those 8 pillars determine what your identity is. They may not all have a lot of elements to determine what that identity is, but when you look at your community as a whole, these are the areas that you begin to look at to say, here's exactly who we are and how do we tell that story. So our process is really, it's in 4 phases. It's the explore, evaluate, express, and engage. And that was in our proposal. And the explore phase is the research phase. We believe, as we said, when you begin to have community engagement and stakeholder engagement, that is probably the most important piece, because what we have found is when people are involved on the front end, they're also involved on the engagement on the back end. And what happens is when you begin to implement your brand, having local businesses embrace that and develop certain things around that brand and begin to say that we're a true part of that is truly important. Now, the strategy of that's very important, and what it looks like is very important. But when a brand is successful, your community is using it, your businesses are using it. That's when Kevin mentioned about what the secret sauce is, everybody thinks about logos. I can ask this question to this group here, and I'll ask it while we're there. Nobody chooses a place to live or start a business because of the logo. They don't. They just don't say, honey, we have to move there because of this logo, or we need to go to this community. Have you seen their logo? They just don't do it. What happens is that tells who it is. Getting it into the community is where the brand becomes very, very successful. So when we do that in the community engagement, what that looks like, it involves residents, businesses, and stakeholders. And those were laid out in your in the proposal, but I will kind of go over some of those. We will do a site visit, a fam tour, where you show us every part of Brentwood. We want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that really helps us get to the depth of who you are. We also do, not only do we do stakeholder interviews and focus groups, I think we do like 15 to 30 is what we proposed in our proposal, and then 4 focus groups of various types of people. And we'll identify what those are. If hopefully we get the opportunity and you choose us, we'll have a getting started call where we'll go over each group as to what we need to ensure that we speak to them. But then we also do 2 research studies, a community perception study where it's with your residents. What do they think? What are their high points? How do they view the city of Brentwood? We also do an attitude awareness and perception study. Because of where you're located, there's a number of different communities around you. We'll go to those communities and see what is your reputation among them. So we can begin to look at where the gaps are and where we're well known or not. My philosophy is sometimes the bad news is the good news. If we know what our reputation is, if it's not so good, we know how we can adjust that to where we become positive. And then we'll do marketing or digital audit, look at a lot of things online and the competitive analysis. And one of the other key pieces is that public listening and learning meetings. Those are really important. And how we do that, while we're there on our site visit, we can do as many of these as we want, as necessary. You know how your community reacts far better than we do. So we're very flexible in adjusting that to make sure that we hit the groups the hot button groups that you know need to be hit. But that's our engagement piece. And what's nice about our process is it's been recognized twice on the travel and tourism side, but for the power of research and what we've done for brand excellence. And it's been recognized in that because of the depth of the research that we do to get to the brand story and the creative elements that are there.
So now I get to, we've talked a lot about community engagement and all the research and all this. What we said was the most important, but there's the results of that. What does it look like? And the key part of that is how we tell your authentic brand story. And that's where Cindy really comes in. Our whole creative process starts with developing a brand narrative, because that's kind of becomes the linchpin of where everything else springs from. It really just tells your community story from all that engagement. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show a few, they're not even case studies. They're more just, I'm gonna show some pictures and talk about how different aspects of these communities might be used for you. So here's one. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sevier County. That's where Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg is, the gateway to the Smoky Mountains. They have about 14 million people come through that county every year to visit the Smoky Mountains. Well, we worked with the county, and one of the things that we learned, they were doing a lot of work, and the county itself is this huge base of tourism, but the county government, while they were impacted by tourism and are involved with tourism, that's not their primary job. Their job is to do the business of the county. And something we figured out is they really weren't getting the credit for all they were doing, both for the visitors and for the residents of Sevier County. And that's something we found across a lot of municipalities, is the municipalities need to get the credit. If they clear the snow well, if they keep the trees trimmed, if they do everything else, it's important they get the credit. And this is a campaign that we developed, kind of some messaging, social media posts, where we started talking about things like, when you've got 65,000 cars passing through each day, you better keep your roads well maintained, paved, and resurfaced. That's pretty uninteresting copy, except when you're a county government. If you're a resident, you're seeing that and you're like, wow, our county's doing a lot. Or 800 tons of trash is processed each day. That's a monumental task that the county government's taking on. And we also did their graphic brand. You see it here. We updated the graphic brand. I mean, we could show you lots of stuff about graphic branding. That's super important, but the story and what we're trying to achieve is the most important. Here's Morrow, Georgia. This is a suburb south of Atlanta. just not unlike you, just right outside of a major metropolitan area. And they had an interesting thing going on. They'd had a huge shift in demographic for a variety of reasons over like a pretty tight period of time, like I don't know, 5 to 10 years. The demographic had drastically changed to be much more diverse, a huge Asian influx, and they needed to change how the city was looked at. So it's important to think about to celebrate your distinction in involving demographics in an area. And this was just another piece of learning. Again, you see some graphic branding. Obviously, we developed a logo, pole banners. You were asking about that earlier. One of the lines was, want to attract customers from all over the world? Open your businesses off exit 233. It was basically saying, if you want to attract people from everywhere, come here because of our demographic base. Then here's Smyrna, Georgia, again, a suburb of Atlanta. One of the important things, I think you asked about it in one of your questions, is the tools. As a municipality, the organization of a place needs lots of really good tools. Obviously, we'll put together a brand standard package with colors and typography, et cetera, show how logos work with different departments, all these things. I think this particular city, there was a ton of departments they had, and they wanted to see how it worked with all of them. And then maybe some sample communications for, I'll call it the practical communications the municipality does. I mean, we're going to show what we like to call adcepts, which are more, they're more creative messaging for a community. But sometimes you just need to talk about the practical stuff. And we like to show some examples of that. And then just business cards, graphically, how does your stuff work? Last one I'll show you is Shafter, California. This is an interesting place. 80% of the country's carrots are grown in Shafter. They have a huge pistachio farms. It's just acres and acres and miles of agriculture in Shafter. They also have a very rich historical base, but they also made some decisions as a municipality to put in this big fiber optic ring around the county, and it enabled them to build this giant distribution center. So this agricultural and heritage, all this knowledge for all the agriculture became foundations for this innovation. Now they're not only an agricultural area, but they're also this very vibrant distribution center that sends products all over the world. And then again, you see how the graphic brand operates within that.
So I think that kind of goes through a little bit of what the process is, what our team is. And again, our experience is one that we've seen a number of different things. We love it when, especially in our community engagement, we like to speak to those people. We classify them as cave people. They're citizens against virtually everything. You're going to have them. We don't mind talking to them. They are very valuable. And one of the things that we have found is, when you talk to them, they will just want their voice to be heard. And once they do, a lot of times they get on board and become very much brand champions. So that's a part of, that's our process and who we are. So we'll open it up for any questions that you have.
Open up to the committee first. Greg?
Yeah, I appreciate all the experience you have in the field. With experience, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You know the right questions to ask, and you start out in that direction. And sometimes you fall into the pattern of asking the same questions over and over and over again, which can be good because it keeps everybody focused and on tack. But do you ever use any branching logic? So when you're hearing something that just doesn't really come out, like, okay, where are you going with this? Do you explore those branches and
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We do. We will have, every community is different. So we don't have what we have classified as canned questions, but what we'll do is once we begin to explore, there may be other doors that get open and we'll begin to explore those as well. So we do use a lot of branching logic in our research.
Thank you.
So you were talking about the elements of developing a story and that really becomes the foundation of what you do, especially when you're talking about place-based logos and development of a brand. As the elements of building that story, do you find that the public engagement or your own investigation is the most central to that?
One thing that, because again, it was a 10-minute presentation. We would love to talk like 2 hours and really go into the weeds about the process. But one thing we didn't mention is as a result of the research, we drill that down to what we call brand truths, which are they can be 4 or 5 different facts that are indisputable about your community. And that often comes from the research. Then the brand story basically takes that and all the interviews and all the research and focused on those brand truths. And we write a narrative. It needs to reflect the personality and the warmth and the history and the heritage of an area. So yes, absolutely. It's both things. It's both the research and the community input. And that, again, without the stakeholder engagement, we would be nowhere.
I will say, I'll add to that. I think that our perception when we're there during the end market, we tend to reserve what that is until we see the other research and to see where that matches or where there may be gaps. So they're equal in developing what the brand story is and the positioning. But it's not primarily based on what we think once we're there. We let the research say it because it's your brand, it's your community's brand. And at the end of the day, if people begin to question what that is, we want you to be able to go back to the research and say, here was the strategy, here were the brand truths, here's how they came up with the brand truths. That's why it is what it is.
You don't develop one before the other, you kind of develop them simultaneously? The two?
Yeah, we will not develop any brand truths or any strategy until all the research is done, till everything is done and we look at all of it individually.
And the brand story is developed after the research and the brand truths are done. Yes.
I have a question. What if in the community engagement, you have a lot of surfacing that doesn't meet these 5 pillars of truth? Do you understand what I mean, what you were just talking about? That there are 5 indisputable, I can't remember the word, what you called them.
So, yeah, so what will happen is those are our brand truths or brand pillars.
Right.
And those only come out of the research. They do not, we're not testing those in any of the groups. So whatever their input is what goes into the brand truths. That's all created after the research is done and we've done all the analysis.
Oh, I was understanding that you had some like solid structure or something that was in place that stood true for good branding.
Are you talking about the wheel?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so you're talking about the place branding wheel with the 8 pillars. If you have some that come out that are not listed in that, we just know from the experience that we have that generally things fall within those. But if you have some of those, we will look at those and it will be equally as important as we look at the whole process. It's an open slate when we come there. As we do the research internally and externally, then it will begin to narrow down to what the brand strategy is, what the truth is, and what the brand story looks like.
Okay, so it could go in any direction. In other words, you could have a community that is unlike or unique anything you have seen or done.
Oh, absolutely. We won't say necessarily that we've seen everything. We've seen a lot of things, but there's always something new in communities. That is for sure.
I would promise you Brentwood is unique. There is no other place like Brentwood. Now, what we bring to the table experience-wise is it is a community outside a major city. We have some experience in that. But outside of that, it's unique because we have to find out who you are.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
No. Anything else? I have a few questions here. I'll try to focus in on, you've answered some of them through your presentation, so I appreciate that. I guess what I'm what I'm hearing, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of really great upfront engagement, strategy development, and narrative that can then translate into what I would, I guess, say is messaging pillars and sort of campaignable expressions for the city. What I haven't really heard yet is how do you translate that then? How do you take all of that and how does that inform what you do visually and graphically for the city?
And, you know, again, it's as a creative and having come from more of an advertising agency background and having done this for many, many years now, having the depth of research really allows, and you can pull aspects from it. Because if you looked at those examples we showed you, I mean, that agricultural community, you could probably feel what it was like to be there. You know, it's dry, it's flat, there's a lot of browns, there's a lot of heritage there. You know, that drove the kind of graphic feeling of the brand, and also the messaging. I mean, if every community you work with has a different tone about it. You know, if they're a community in the mountains, they're going to have a certain way. If they're in Appalachia, they're going to have a certain tone to them. If they're in Northern California or in the San Francisco Bay Area, they're going to have a different tone. And all that is developed through the research and the brand story, and it helps drive the graphics. You know, there's a certain color tone that's going to come from different regions of the country, just because of, if you're close to the ocean, you're going to have more blues and those types of things. If you're going to be in the Pacific Northwest, you might have more greens. You know, so it really drives the graphics just like it drives the narrative. I mean, I'm a firm believer in the research, and then I'll shut up. We go back to the logo. The logo is very important for a city because it's an identifier. You know, it's really what you put on a shirt, what you put on your communications. It's important. But as Greg said, the one thing I will say without question is there will be people in your community when we finish. Whoever does this project, there will be people that will not like
Sure.
the logo, and so it's important that the research drives that logo, and that you can go back and say, this is the reason we did what we did and we didn't do that. They still might not be happy, but at least there's a rationale to how we got there.
Thank you. And I would assume that would apply to the current City of Warmth tagline. Your evaluation of that would come out of research and strategy.
That is a specific question that we will ask that question in our groups of, you know, if you were claimed to be a city of warmth, what would you expect? And then do we deliver that? But we would absolutely test that since you already have that in place. And
there are some examples, and I'm trying to remember the line. I apologize because we work with a lot of communities. There's a community in Apex, North Carolina, had a positioning line that they'd used before, and after the research, it made perfect sense to continue using it. We don't want to change for change's sake.
Yeah, and part of that too is I'm glad Kevin mentioned that. We worked with a community in Colorado that claimed to be the garden capital of Colorado. And when we arrived, we did not see one garden, nor flowers. And we asked the question, and they said, you know, somebody said that about 40 years ago, and we just always used it. So what happened with that is we began to explore that in the focus groups and said, if you're going to continue to use this, which you can't, it's yours, but we don't recommend it. But if you do, here are some things that you can do to make that brand come alive. If that's what you said, they'd engraved it in a stone wall.
Yeah.
That was going to cost a lot of money to do it. So with that, we will test that with the City of Warmth for sure.
Okay. And then as far as logos and the town in California that you used as an example, did you develop, was that a rebrand with the logo and everything, or had they already had that in establishment?
Everything we showed you today was all new. Okay. Everything was new. There are instances where we evolve a logo. It's not a drastic change. We worked in Herndon, Virginia, where the logo, they said, we don't want to change it. So we did the branding process. I think we did some subtle updates to it, but we didn't change the logo. There were lots of reasons for it, but I mean, again, logos are super important and they
Yeah.
need to be a tool, and they'll never be your whole brand. So
No, I can
if
appreciate that. And I guess what I'm getting to is just some proposals that we received said they, there's a limited number of initial logo designs. Some didn't really articulate it. Yours didn't necessarily articulate in the initial rounds, what would we expect that process to look like?
as a guy that'll be very hands-on in that process, our goal is to leave you with the right tools. And if that means, I mean, sometimes we can do 2 or 3 logos or 4 logos and you've got it and it's going to be great. Sometimes I want to show you 5 or 6 or 7, it just depends on the process. And it seems, I've never felt that it was, or we've never felt that it was the right idea to go. Sometimes I think we put a number because everybody asked for a number, but ultimately our job is to get you to a good place. Again, there's always limits to that, but our job is to get you to a good place and work through. In fact, that shafter, I'll use that as an example. That was a long, arduous process for a variety of reasons. Greg talked about our experience. We've worked with a lot of city councils and aldermen, and sometimes that process gets very difficult. And you got to keep the faith and understand working through it.
Yeah, and one of the things we do believe in that logo process is if council, which we would expect to speak with your council, but if they are involved in approving that there's a process that we know that needs to happen. So all of this work on your end and on our end is done, and then you get to council and all of a sudden it goes awry because of one person. We have some checks and balances as to how to manage that, to go, I don't think it's going to pass. We need to do something different.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yep.
Appreciate that. And as far as that goes, I like the approach of letting the process lead you. As far as your proposed pricing, is that sort of that rigor, I guess, is built into the proposal, or is there a certain point that you say, okay, there's a change in scope? How do you guys handle that?
Actually, the way we've handled that is if there's a drastic change of something, then we'll have that discussion. But we let the process lead, and we feel pretty comfortable where we are in the pricing to be able to let that happen. And just if there's something drastic that you said, oh, we want a video that needs to happen that we haven't talked about,
Right. Yeah.
then that would be different.
A tactical thing outside the scope, yeah.
Yeah, but our scope, we feel very comfortable within that.
And yeah, because the experience, just to push back to the experience, I mean, having gone down the path and had, we'd be lying if we said all the brands we've ever worked on have gone perfectly smooth. That just wouldn't be true. There are some that go hard, but I do feel like we always leave our clients with the right solution. The process may get bumpy, but we stay with it because it's important. I mean, for a city government, this is really important, and it gets a lot of attention, and it would be bad of us to leave you hanging. So
Understood.
Yeah. And that's where again, it's the two entities, because the city government, and you want your residents to feel proud of what it looks like and who it is. And so having those two things, doing what it takes to get there, is what's important.
Great. Any other questions from the committee? Anything from staff?
No.
Thank you very much,
We
gentlemen. I
really-
appreciate your time.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys taking the time. Sorry for the technical difficulties there at the beginning. On our end, it seems to have corrected itself, so we'll take it. But we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
absolutely.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we'll leave.
Next up, we have our representatives from Destination by Design. We have the Matts. We have Matt Wagner and Matt Powell.
Are they on? Okay.
Hi, y'all.
Hey.
Can you hear okay?
You can, now that we've got the
Excellent.
technical issues sorted.
Excellent. Looks like Matt's joining as well. I think
We
maybe
got
switch over to
Matt
the
Squared
panel.
joining us.
That's
Yeah.
right.
How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. That's great.
Very good to be with you guys. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Looking forward to chatting with you guys. My name's Matt Powell. I'm the communications director here at Destination by Design. So I've been with the firm since the beginning, and I lead the team, the communications team, and I'll let Matt Wagner introduce himself.
And I am Matt Wagner. You can just call me Wagner if it's easier to differentiate between the two. And I am the creative director at DVD. We're excited to be presenting to you and with you, and just kind of sharing a little bit more about who we are.
Looking forward to it.
Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Sure.
Yep.
Just to make sure, can you now see? I just switched windows to the proposal.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
You're a wizard, Matt. You did it.
I'm gonna click through a couple of these windows.
Let's do it.
So, yes, thank you so much. Here's the agenda we prepared. Just gonna talk briefly about who we are, what we do, how we go about the process on a general level. And then I was gonna dive into our proposals and talk more about the specifics. Now, I was under the impression we had a 10-minute presentation, so that's more or less what I prepared, although I do have some things to show that we could flip through and kind of go wherever you guys want to go for Q&A if you'd like. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
All right. So Destination by Design is a multidisciplinary planning, design, and engineering firm. So our department is communications. We specialize in the place branding aspect. And I'll dive a little more into the specifics of who we are as a department. But broadly speaking, we really are passionate about helping communities become more vibrant. We're really driven and passionate to help community leaders like yourselves just make a better place to live. And we believe that engaging your community in that process, listening to them as much as possible is key to that. So some of the types of communities that we tend to work for are, I like to say, communities at key inflection points. So this tends to be a community like yourself maybe is experiencing a lot of growth, or in some instances, we work with a lot of communities that have they're having to figure out how to reinvent because they've had an industry move away or something like that. And so they're realizing they need to get really strategic about who they are, define their identity, really pull their community into that process to build community pride and build cohesion. So we're very research driven. We believe in a community-led process. We like to say, this is for you, this is not for us. We're coming in to help you facilitate a process that's going to engage your key stakeholders, your key government leaders, and your community broadly to help you get to a good end result. So we are explicitly focused on municipal clients, and we've got a lot of experience now working to create a municipal focused brand architecture, so helping communities apply the brand identity across departments and to be flexible and very usable in a lot of different applications. So we take what we would call a very place-based approach. We are going to roll up our sleeves with you, figure out what makes your place truly unique, and really help you build on those strong qualities that are endemic to you as a place and to as a community. So we also focus with a lot of communities on just quality of life. These are communities that recognize quality of life is just a key pillar to their economic development strategy, and they want to make sure that that's built into the brand that they're building for the future, because they know that they want that to continue, and they want that to continue to be a very strong focus for their identity and for their community moving forward. And our communications team is a full service branding, marketing department within the broader firm. but we have the benefit of pulling on the other divisions when needed. For instance, our planning division, very expert in community engagement, achieving consensus. So we have that as a resource, and as you know, it's really truly who we are. Same is true for our landscape architects and engineers. When we're designing brands, we're thinking through, how could this live on a sign? How could this end up impacting the built environment? And how can this take flight into the world, or into the wild, as we like to say? So just to kind of recap that, we've got these technically 3 divisions, but we're really starting to do a lot more wayfinding signage as well. So we're starting to build our own wayfinding specialty, because we do so much branding work. This is parlaying into a lot of signage work too. So that's good thing to note. Our communications team is focused on public engagement, branding, and marketing. And so we have a full service team that backs us up in all the different aspects of communications, from strategy to social media to graphic design, web design, and video and photography production and storytelling. So it's a full service team, but your project team would be this group here. So myself, I lead the team, so provide a lot of oversight. I'm involved a lot on the front end, developing the strategy, helping with the discovery work. And then Aaron leads our brand strategies. Matt Wagner leads our brand design and identity design. Dylan is one of our key graphic designers from the production standpoint. And Megan really helps us think through, how's this brand strategy and brand identity going to be implemented into the world through social media and other digital aspects. So as I mentioned, we've had the opportunity to work with municipalities in all different types of environments. So that goes from a recent project that we've wrapped up for the state of New Jersey, rebranding their state park system, down to downtown development organizations, within a larger city that are revitalizing or, working on civic engagement and the like. So a lot of county branding, includes regional branding, and so we bring all of that to the table. Now, just kind of looking at a 30,000-foot view at our process, these are the main buckets that we think about as we're approaching a project like this. So discovery is when we get involved with you, starting with the project committee that will work with from start to finish, perhaps a group like yourself, where we get high-level direction and start to figure out how we're going to engage the community, what are the goals of the project, and we come for a site visit. We'll get into a little more detail there, but we'll come for the site visit. We'll really begin to soak up what makes Brentwood unique, and this is where we'll engage with the community, engage with the stakeholders to really hear the unique story and get our direction for brand positioning. From there, we'll deliver a strategy which is the foundation for all future work. It's going to provide you with a really nice articulation of your unique brand position. And I think I'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about that as well. But then that points us to design, where Matt Wagner will take some of your key brand attributes with which we will obtain from our discovery and also from our work with the project committee, to give real clear direction to the logo design and how this is going to be illustrated in logo work and design work. And then from there, we're moving into implementation work. So that in this proposal includes a full plan for rollout and ongoing implementation of the brand system. And then, from there, it can take a lot of different forms that this proposal may not include, but we know that you will be working on it. So we want to set you up really with a turnkey method to carry this thing out successfully. In terms of the discovery work, we like to get creative with the project committee to figure out what's the best way to engage all the different aspects of the community, and we'll help you think through that methodically in terms of, are there certain neighborhoods or districts we want to pull in? Are there certain other groups? Are there other stakeholder groups that we want to get at the table for a one-on-one, for instance, or who might we want to bring into a focus group meeting, and who might we want to bring into a public meeting. So we're going to work with you to get creative to figure out what's the best way to do this, and design that accordingly so that when we show up, we've got a really good plan. And the other piece of this is a online survey as well. So we'll send out we'll send out the survey to kind of the broad community so that people that can't come in person will have that opportunity. Strategy. We put together a really nice document for you. Let me take this back to the beginning. This is just an example of one of our brand strategies, just to give you a look at what the final deliverable is for this. We're going to spell out everything that is key to creating this identity from the get-go, from the most basic items, such as a hashtag or a handle or a web address, and then we'll get into the narrative of who is Brentwood from a storytelling standpoint. And one of the foundational pieces for us for a brand strategy is to identify the pillars of the community, or the pillars of the brand. These are the themes that we pick up on from all of our engagement and all of our research. So this is going to be unique to you guys. This is not something we come in with preconceived notions necessarily. We're looking and listening for key phrases, things that people are hitting time and time again, so that we can understand what's the most important pieces here to build a brand around that truly will contribute to your uniqueness. And so from there, we'll identify story themes, which is how we would recommend you kind of telling the story of each pillar, so that this becomes very turnkey for you, as you can imagine. And then the strategy also includes laying out what are the goals of the brand, not necessarily the goals of the organization or the municipality, but the brand itself. What are we trying to achieve with this communication effort? And then we're going to come at it from a lot of different ways. We're going to write a brand promise. We're going to write a unique value statement and a purpose statement to get you all of the positioning language that you need. And when you get to the end of this document becomes a very useful long-term planning document, honestly, so that everybody internally is on the same page. They've got the same language. And then this is going to feed your external language. But first and foremost, this deliverable is something that you will use internally time and time again, and it should last you a very long time. And you can kind of imagine how that lays a really strong foundation for the design work that comes next. I might let Matt chat for a second about the design piece if you'd like, and Matt, I can pull up one of these brand guides if you'd like as well.
Yeah, why don't you just drop down to slide 20? That'd be perfect.
Okay.
So like Matt said, we do have and design a kind of a custom crafted approach throughout this whole process that is very community centric. So the idea is, discovery gets us boots on the ground. Strategy is really discovering who you are. And once you've kind of accepted that, or the creative committee has accepted that, I'll jump in. And so I'll take you through the visual identity process. Typically, we can get through this in about 4 meetings. We start with creative direction, where we really work through a lot of different creative exercises to really understand, okay, if this is who you are, if this is what your identity is, then these are maybe the best recommendations on how to visualize that identity. And we're going to go through a lot of kind of mood boards, really just a lot of visual references that help you understand the implications of the decisions we're making along the way. As you can see, this process kind of builds on itself. So every time we meet, we're making decisions together as a group, as a team. So you have creative direction. First round typically is black and white, but many times I will start to introduce color, because usually the creative committee has given enough context clues, if you will, to really start to explore color. So then when we get into second round, I'm always going through each step of the way. I'm going through a recap. I'm giving you refined concepts, and then we'll explore color even more. I like to say that at least in the second round, maybe in the first round, but usually in the second round, we're kind of Bob Rossing this. I'm real time making color tweaks as you need. And again, you've heard the word mockups mentioned, but anything that you all deem necessary or important for this, for the community, for this project, we'll throw it into a mockup. We really want you to be able to see what this brand looks like living in the wild, because all of these decisions are kind of hard to really understand what the implications are if you're not reviewing what it actually will look like on a downtown a pole banner, if you will, or on a billboard, or on city buildings, municipal buildings, those types of things. I'd like to show, and Matt, if you'll show on even on 18, slide 18, you can see some of the mock-ups we even did for the state of New Jersey for their state parks program. So there's a lot of opportunities here. And then once we get to, after the second round, we'll move into finalization. So that'll be where I present a full brand system. You'll have different logo lockups or logo variations, whether they be horizontal or vertical, etc. We'll have final color established. All of those things that we've discussed and all of those decisions we've made will really lead us into kind of a leading document, or the kind of the do's and don'ts of how you will implement your brand, which is the brand guidelines. And Matt, you actually pulled up one of those. Yeah, Cleveland, Texas is a great one. So this is simply taking you through the foundational elements, how we developed the system. If you go to the next page, Matt. Talking through the detailing, why all of the different decisions that have been made along the way are included in this. So there's the detailing on the left. And then you can flip through some of these pages as you like, Matt. But we can just show that the idea for here is that we want to introduce versatility into this brand. And so we want you to be able to have a flexible identity or brand system. So there's a lot of different logo variations depending on the in use and how you might actually use them. So we want to show you what the secondary logo mark looks like, for example, on this page. Excuse me, and how that actually could be utilized. So you can start to visualize on digital for shirt, for city vehicles, those types of things. Excuse me. We'll even establish, fonts, tagline, all of that stuff in here, and that is important for you all to kind of review. And even in this one, you'll see some EDC marks you're seeing here, and other elements as well. I'll pass it back to you, Matt.
Okay. So where does that take us? Implementation, our plan includes a full implementation plan. And, we've worked with a lot of different communities to advise them on different ways to celebrate the brand in the community, but we're also going to help you figure out how to roll it out first internally. I know that the multiple departments in the city are a concern to fold into this process. So our implementation plan would certainly include how all of that would integrate as well. And this is, I think, kind of concludes this part of the presentation where I could jump into Q&A or get into the kind of details of our approach and our proposal, but maybe I'll throw it over to you guys to let you decide which way you'd like to go.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to the committee if they have some questions. Go ahead, David.
You just mentioned about the different departments and trying to integrate them. Does that include police, fire, and all of that?
Exactly. Yes.
Yep, you can show Danville, Matt. Good job. I was going to that.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about how that worked for us in Danville?
Yep, absolutely. So obviously, when you go through a rebrand process, there needs to be the consideration for how we want to approach or treat the kind of sub brands under this, right? We like to think of this as a house or family of brands, if you will. So The opportunity here is to establish the primary brand identity, which would be for the city, but then you have all of these other, sub or departments, if you will, or sub brands that need to be treated or considered. And so we actually met with the police department and fire as well to really make sure, hey, these are the implications here. This is what we're considering. Because we also designed the city seal, they actually wanted to use the seal in the police and fire patches, and so that was actually a great opportunity because they were already currently using those. So the update allowed us to really lean into that. We do want to kind of honor some of those, like, okay, so police probably not going to change colors on that because that is, for public safety. We're going to keep that the same, but we're going to figure out how to creatively implement your new brand identity to the sub brands or departments, if you will.
Thank you.
And just to show you a little bit more on this Danville project, we redesigned their seal. At the same time, we redesigned the city logo and made sure that they all, that they both spoke to each other really well. And then you could see how they tie into the other departments as well.
Great. Thank you.
In your plan and your proposal, you have a 12-month marketing plan listed.
Right.
So you'd work with Michelle to develop basically a year-long plan on the implementation.
Correct.
And would you stay in touch with Michelle and Bola over the course of the year to do checkups and make sure that things are going along?
That's a great question. I think that the vision might be that we would develop this together, and then at the point that she's happy and comfortable with it, we would turn that over with the completion of our contract. However, if this is something that you guys are interested in, I'm certainly interested in, talking about how that could work. If there's some specific checkpoints, after the finalization of everything, then, let's talk about how that could look.
Okay. Well, yeah, of course, there would be. But handing off a 12-month plan and not having any follow-up is a little bit tenuous.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so, we're a pretty creative bunch, and we really aim to provide you guys with the best service and something that's going to make you successful. So if this is something that we need to work in here in terms of specifically what you're asking about, then I'm open to that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the committee have questions? I appreciate you have in your proposal. I appreciate the depth, even showing what your slide here is, that you've broken things down into tasks and subtasks, which makes it I guess understanding how you break down your cost estimates a little bit more helpful. But speaking to that, if there were some things in here that we felt, as if we were to decide to move forward with you all, how negotiable are your tasks? What are the mandatories that you believe lead to success? And would there be some things that we could say, look, what if we don't necessarily need this? How does that impact the estimates?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's always negotiable. In terms of our, we would not want to do this without these certain tasks. I think that I could give you an idea there. In discovery, we're certainly committed to a field visit, the stakeholder engagement piece. If we need to peel back on the stakeholder engagement piece for budget reasons, for instance, then we can certainly rework the intensity with which we're maybe planning to do stakeholder engagement. That's done sometimes, for sure. The project website and online survey. Well, the project website, we have a lot of clients that don't do that. It's a nice add-on to advertise the public engagement piece, but the project website could come out. The online survey, that's something we would recommend, and it's not a big lift. The independent research and brand assessment, we're going to do that to some degree anyway. But again, if we need to scale it back, we can. This
Yeah, and
task-
I guess we don't have to go task by task. I just, in general, with clients in the past, you've been flexible in meeting if maybe the budget is a little bit high for what, the estimate is maybe a little high for what we're thinking, but you have experience in really making sure that the quality of work and the deliverable isn't, I just want to make sure that you have experience doing that in the past, that you can be flexible with your approach.
100%. Yeah. And this process of responding to RFPs can be hard. Sometimes it feels like we're shooting in the dark a little bit. I mean, you guys did a good job with your RFP. We tend to, I'd say, swing for the fences a little bit on how robust we want of a service that we want to provide. So I think that's maybe how we where we landed on this one. But yes, 100%. I always say I never would want budget to be the reason you don't hire us. Like, please give us the opportunity to recraft something that might fit more within your budget, according to kind of how you see your needs to be, and don't let that be the barrier to us working together.
Thank you. That's great. I'm just reviewing. I think you answered some of my questions already, so I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Give me a second.
Sure.
I think that's pretty much covers my questions. Anybody else have any questions? I guess I actually one point. So you spend a lot of time. I think your creative execution of visual is really outstanding. Where does the brand voice and narrative? I think you did talk a little bit about messaging development and pillars. Is that in the strategy development or the?
That's in strategy, exactly. Okay. So we're gonna articulate strategy. Could be also. I could also use the term articulation, right? So this is where we're getting clear, using the written word, what your positioning is, what your brand identity is all about, what makes you truly unique. And we pull this from what we hear from your community. Like, we're literally listening to their words, and we're writing a story and writing this positioning document in that phase right there, the strategy phase.
Okay, and then that brand voice and that strategy then gets applied to the brand guidelines as well, or is brand guidelines just design?
Matt, you want to?
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
So the brand strategy is kind of compiled into the brand guidelines. It is kind of a master brand guidelines or document, if you will. So we will start out with some of those elements you mentioned, like the kind of voice pillars. All of the things that we've established are important in the strategy will be compiled into that. So you kind of have one book or one guide to really reference for that. So it's a great tool for you all. Okay,
so at the end of the design, sort of before the implementation phase, those two phases are combined. Yep. Okay.
You will have seen and read all parts of the strategy and understood the brand guidelines before it is all compiled into one beautifully designed document. But yes, it is. You will receive that along with, once we move into, before we kind of get into implementation, we will deliver all of your logo assets, all the brand assets, so pattern, color, fonts, all of the logo lockups, any of that stuff that we've kind of established is important, will be delivered in between design and implementation.
Great. And then in some of your examples you showed a lot of, not just the primary mark, but you had, variations of the marks, but then also secondary marks. Is that do you define that in the scope? Or is that something that you develop through the creative process that is included into what you're?
That's a great question. We will develop, well, especially as it relates to cities. So if there are sub brands or marks that need to really be considered, we will do that, especially for departments. But as it relates to your primary brand, all of those primary, secondary, tertiary options are established in this process. So we will go through that. And I will tell you, we do like to kind of design with versatility in mind. So there's two ways to kind of achieve that. One is through scalability or responsiveness, where a logo can be a bit more complex at larger sizes, and then just kind of whittle down almost to logo type, just using the actual logo type or unique custom type that we'll create for you at a very small size. That'll even take us into kind of favicon, all the small iconography, things like that. But so responsiveness, or we'll design different kind of lockups for you. One, the primary is your recommended logo that we always recommend. Hey, if at all possible, use this. But when space is an issue or something comes along that you just can't really use the primary mark, then we'll have secondary options for you to use. And they could be that could be just because there's horizontal, or it could be circular or badge options. We really like to think about this. We want the community to be excited and happy about this. So we like to design for the opportunities where you might be able to create merchandise. We want to consider marketing and advertising absolutely all the time. So there's those options where like in Cleveland, we were going through that pretty fast, but we actually created some merch marks, which were not the primary brand, but they were kind of offshoots of things we kind of explored that the creative committee really liked, but we determined that it wasn't best as the primary brand, but still wanted to keep.
Okay. Interesting.
So
Thank you.
Just to build on that a little bit, this is where we develop all of the primary. I mean, this is a city logo primary design, and then here's our sub brands. So the brand architecture for city departments and whatnot would come into play here. This is where we're creating the brand standards and brand guidebook, and then all those nice mock-ups and templates that you saw would come into play right here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Appreciate your proposal and presentation.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. We appreciate your patience. I know you guys kind of had to wait there for a little bit, but we appreciate you taking the time to speak and present tonight.
It's not a problem at all. Thank you so much for letting us do it. I hope to hear from you guys again. It'd be great to work with you.
Thanks so much.
All righty. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Okay. So, obviously a lot to consider and to take in. Where does the committee want to go with this tonight? Or is there a feeling on sort of regrouping and maybe reviewing what we heard tonight and then?
I think if I could suggest, and I shared this with you this morning, I have some suggestions on how we can move forward from here. There's a lot to digest here. And so what I would suggest is you all received the score sheet as part of the initial review that I sent. I would say over the next, let's say, week and a half, by next Friday, if you could take the time to consider these three proposals, also think through, all of the other proposals that you reviewed, just in case you have any follow-up questions regarding any of those, and score the final three on those score sheets, and you could send those to me. I will tally.
And Octavia?
Myself and Octavia, thank you for the reminder, because any sort of evaluation of these submissions is public record, because this was a public bidding process. So you will send those to myself and Octavia. I will tally up all of the scores to see kind of where we land, and then I will make the final tally sheet as well as each committee member's score sheets. We will add those to the agenda ahead of time for review before the April meeting. At our April meeting, we will come together, discuss kind of where we all are, what our thoughts are, and then determine the best way to move forward.
So if you're asking us to use this bidder information template that you used to score all 22 submissions, grading the 3 that we presented tonight.
Right.
So here's my question. I don't understand your category. I don't understand the categories, nor do I understand where it says 5 points and then every single score is higher than 5 points.
Yeah.
Those are added together. I'm sorry.
So there was 6 committee members, review committee members.
I see.
So that
So that's
she
an
just didn't
aggregate
change,
score
it
of
needed to
all
be
Yes, I'm sorry.
in the top
Yes.
panel, it should have been changed to
I
the
should have changed the
additive
total.
Total, yeah.
Yes, so each individual scores were out of like 5, out of 10, out of 25. I added them all, and then that was the total score they received from all of my reviewers.
Yeah, I figured that out. I had to do the math and think, okay, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
I
that's-
apologize about that. Yes, so essentially, we'd be doing the same thing for everyone. You guys would all score out of 5, out of 10, however those categories are broken down, and then I'll do the totals like I did for my review committee.
Got it.
And I'll change the totals at the top on that final tally sheet.
I have a question. I don't know where the score sheet is. What was it with?
It's an attachment.
It's in
It is an attachment.
Oh, it's an addendum thing, an attachment?
Agenda.
It's attached to the agenda. It was also in the email that I sent
We
that
can show
had,
you after the meeting.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, I'll make sure you know.
It's a Word document that is just a,
Oh, I already did that.
okay, well.
And that's
here- so
understandable.
The other thing that I would say, I know one committee member is not here tonight, but she did submit, Tally, if there was anything tonight during the presentation that you heard that maybe changes your perspective on what you provided, then that's fine. And then again, I will say that there were I don't know that we want to go back all the way through the 22, but of the 6, there were some others that maybe if you look at them, there might be something that you want to ask questions about, or even have a potential, have one of them come to present to us next meeting if that's something we don't feel like we have what we need here, which we've got some good range, I think, in the 3 that are presented tonight. But the decision for this is really important, that we find the right partner who can develop the plan and the right brand for the city long-term. And so, I want to make sure that the committee feels comfortable that they've heard everything, seen everything they need to make a really well-informed decision.
When do you want them by?
Next Friday.
Okay.
No,
No,
27th.
Yep.
And then our next communications committee meeting,
Send all that out to you all. The timeline and everything.
Yeah, you can have it until the end of next week.
yeah, and our
So,
April meeting is April 21st.
Right.
Yeah, we have
So that'll
another,
give us plenty of time
have a
to
month.
tally things
Yeah.
up and make sure everyone's informed. Yeah.
and then that way too, and by next Friday, if there is a suggestion from anyone that, hey, I'd like to see what this other, somebody we didn't hear tonight, I'd like to kind of hear more from them. If there's some consensus around that, then gives Michelle time to communicate with them and set something up.
Remind me who the other 3 were.
The other 3 were grown,
Altogether,
altogether, and
McDaniel?
McDaniels, yes.
Okay,
Grown, altogether, McDaniels.
Okay.
And
And
all
there
6
were,
great.
yeah, those were the 6 that the committee narrowed down to. Obviously, there were all 22. So, and I want to make sure that all of those 22 spent time, really a lot of time putting things together. So let's all, as a committee, just make sure that we're looking through it. And then if we concur with the 3, or if we decide we want an additional 1 for consideration or 2, then we have that obligation or flexibility to do so as a committee.
Would you like me to send an email tomorrow with the score sheet attached and the criteria again? Would that be helpful?
That would be good.
Okay, I will send
And
that
I think
tomorrow morning.
even, so I think there was one document that had not only just the criteria labels, but what that criteria means. Like you had more
Yeah,
narrative
I
around
had it
what to
broken down.
consider
I
for
will
that
send that
criteria.
as well.
I think that's helpful.
Yep.
Just a matter of perspective, and this is a pet peeve of mine. I looked through all 22, either closely or somewhat. They all use community engagement, which is a big buzzword now. I didn't see a single one that really did community engagement. They were using that as a way of talking about doing research. And that's fine, but what I heard was focus groups and kind of extending that out. But the only reason I'm mentioning that is that, our firm was kind of known for writing the book on community engagement, and it tends to involve thousands of people not doing focus groups. But that was just a perception I had about the nature of the industry now. Community engagement is clearly a buzz phrase that people think they have to use. I'm not offering that as criticism because everybody did it. It's just something that caught my eye.
Well, I think that, maybe that's the necessary clarity or questioning that needs to happen for final selection, is to make sure we clearly understand what that means, not just a buzzword.
Actually, on that line, only one of the three we heard tonight actually was involving the entire community to come to one place. This last group, for instance, did, but through an online survey, and we have a lot of people of our older groups
Yeah,
that are not going to do.
I
we
will say,
know
don't put
that.
a whole lot of faith in people showing up
No.
to, I mean, we have to do it, and we should
Right.
do it. And I hope that we have, out of a city of 8,000, I hope we have a really high percentage of people come and then participate, but,
If I may interject, I think that another avenue for you all is, instead of bringing them back, if you all have follow-up questions, Michelle could also send it to them, and they can send something in writing back.
I think that
Because
that's
we
a
do
good
have
way to
quite a
go
bit of
about
lead
it.
time.
So think about specific questions to each of these people who presented tonight. If there's more clarity that you come up with, communicate that to Michelle and Octavia so that they can follow up directly with them. And then the next meeting, we can kind of see what the responses are. Fair enough? Yeah, microphone. So, Mike, turn the microphone on, and so we can have that on public record. Craig, I'll say Craig mentioned how wonderful of a job Michelle did. Appreciated it. Okay, so that takes us. I'm lost in my agenda here. It's not moving.
Didn't get it to move either.
So, I think that next is it citizen comments? Okay, another opportunity for citizen comment, if anybody's online? No? All right. Seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.